Good evening. Welcome to Highline Heritage Museum for 7 Stories. These are local stories by real people. These are real stories. This will be the last 7 stories for this year, and we'll start again next year. There's some information about signing up for 7 stories and about a workshop to tell your story. You can find out more on the way out. I'd like to thank you for our partnership with the museum with 7 Stories. You know, as a museum, we are a nonprofit. We do depend on memberships and donors, or sponsors. So if you know of anybody who fits any of those categories, which is most people, please send them our way. Be much appreciated. And one thing we do every time we have an event or a gathering is to take a moment to recognize that we are on native land. Please think in honor of those who have preceded us, including the people of the Duwamish, Suquamish, Nisqually, and Muckleshoot tribes. And your host tonight will be Deborah. I invite her up now. Deborah, thank you.
7 Stories is something that was started by Sybil based on a storytelling group she attended when she lived in Alaska. And the idea is that people tell stories about their lives, things that happened to them, true stories, and we're doing it in 7 minutes. So we welcome all of you. 7 stories, 7 people, 7 minutes. So we welcome all of you to come listen, to come tell stories. We love having new storytellers, and we have one tonight opening our show. But before we go on, I'd like Sybil to come up and with some exciting 7-story news.
7 Stories started a meetup page, and you go to 7 Stories Meetup or Meetup 7 Stories. Just Google it, and that'll take you right to it. And we would love you to sign up. It helps us to get the information out to you. We got lots of information on there, and we're developing it, so it's going to get nicer and nicer and more professional as time goes on. So please sign up. It'll be wonderful if you do that for us. Then the other thing I wanted to say was that this Paul Currington runs Fresh Ground Stories downtown on Queen Anne Hill.
Yeah.
And he's a great storyteller. He gives fabulous feedback for you to really hone your idea or your story. So he's giving a workshop for us here Sunday, December 3rd, and it'll go from 1 to 3:30. And we'll limit the size. It's free, and I've taken one from him before. It's really worth it. It's really, really, really good. You get lots of support and lots of good advice. So I'm sitting on the plane coming back from California last night, where I was down there visiting my daughter, her husband, and granddaughter. And this lady sits next to me, and she says, "Hi, I'm Pam." And she gives me this. I was an authentic smile. I can't do it as nicely, but she just gave me this great beaming smile. And so of course I introduced myself to her, and then we just chat for a minute. Turns out she's a retired midwife who had taught in Saudi Arabia, who had worked in Saudi Arabia as a midwife. So we chatted, and she told me her story, and that's what I love about this. People are so interesting, and they have such wisdom to impart and lots to share. And so this is a favorite night of mine. I'm really glad you're here.
Sybil just reminded me of something with a beaming smile. I drove up the hill just in time to see the beaming moon. Did you guys see that?
Oh, yeah.
Whoa! I was not expecting that at all, and it was, if for no other reason, that's enough for me to have left the house tonight, because I don't know that I would have seen it. So anyway, that's a bonus. We didn't plan it, but it's just our special gift to you. So our first storyteller tonight is Darby. She's new to 7 Stories, and we're glad to welcome a new storyteller. And we really are. We love having new storytellers. One of our relatively new storytellers is already a 3-time person. So, we love that. She writes in various forms, including original song lyrics as a singer, and after many years, she's getting back to some of her other half-finished writing projects. Her story tonight is about something she should regret, but doesn't. Come on up.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me. So, when I think about things I should regret but don't, I first think of all the things I should regret and do. But I can come up with a few things that I should regret and don't. And the first one that comes to my mind instantly is how my doggie came into my life. My doggie daughter. I call her my daughter. She's my fur baby. And it was in a time where it was a dark time in my life. I was living alone. It was my first own apartment. My first attempt at adulting, which really I'm still only barely catching on to. But I was giving it a shot. I was living alone. I was affording it myself, barely affording it. And I was doing 3 part-time jobs, and I was doing all the things to just survive, and I was struggling. I wanted to live alone and do it on my own, but I was really lonely, and I was struggling in a lot of ways, and I just really craved a specific kind of company. I wanted something to take care of. And for a little bit I thought, well, should I have a baby? But, you can't just think that and do it like it's nothing. And I thought, well, that would be a disaster then. And I'm probably doing it for selfish reasons because I'm just lonely. And I want to take care of something, but I can barely take care of myself. I can barely afford my tiny apartment. I didn't always have food. And I thought, okay, I need to have scruples about this. That's not the right way to go.
Right on.
And I always craved a dog. I loved animals. I've always been obsessed with animals. And even though, we had a dog of our own, a family dog growing up, I always just wanted, part of my vision of that doing it alone was having your own apartment, having your own things, having your own dog, having your own pet that you were so good at taking care of. And I was just going to be so good at everything, so on point, on top of everything. But since I could barely survive, I knew I also shouldn't have a dog because I didn't have the time. I had all these jobs. I didn't have enough money, like I said. So I thought, okay, I can't get a dog either. I'm just going to have to just chug away at life, chip away, work my jobs, come home, get rest, do all the things, do all the basics. But I realized at one point, okay, I could get my fix from volunteering at a shelter. A few days a month, still get to see all the critters and talk to them in my baby voice like I do. But, didn't have the responsibility that comes with it that I couldn't handle. So, okay, I start up at this shelter, and this was when I lived in Philadelphia, by the way, outside of Philadelphia. And the shelter I started at was very, very busy, very chaotic. Unfortunately, it's a city that's really rife with stray situations and rescue situations. So it was actually a little too much for me. My anxiety, it really got to my anxiety, and it was a very hustling, bustling location. And I also have to admit, I wanted it to be a little more, I thought I was going to get to be more hands-on. I thought it was basically volunteering to snuggle with animals for a few hours. And, it was janitorial stuff and cleaning the cages and the enclosures. And that's all so important. That's all very important. Someone's got to do it. But I couldn't help but be depressed that I didn't really get to spend time with the BBs and all the I was a newbie. So the veterans, they all got to pick the good shifts where they did get to walk the dogs and snuggle the cats and play with them and do the more fun stuff. So I wasn't there for terribly long. I ended up, a position opened at a different rescue that was in a neighborhood that was quieter. Or the location of the rescue at least itself was quieter. And it was a cat-only rescue. And I thought, well, this will be nice. There's only one person on shift. I kind of get the place to myself, and I get to let out each cat as I clean its thing, and so I do get to kind of snuggle with the cats and spend time with them, and it just felt like my own little world with the animals for a bit. I got to be kind of Snow White inner city Snow White. And so I did that for a little while, and I still, I was just still depressed, still wanted my own pet, my own dog. And one day, everything changed. I was a little bit early, and I come to the stoplight at Aramingo. I remember it like it was yesterday. Aramingo and Ontario Avenues. And I come to the stoplight, and walking along with the people on the sidewalk is this emaciated pit bull, as if it's nothing, just trotting along like one of the folks. And I saw, that's weird. No one's batting an eyelash. No one's rushing to be like, is this dog okay? She doesn't look well. And it didn't take me long to decide, okay, as soon as that light hits green, I got a little time. I'm taking that right. She rounds a corner. She trots around the corner casually. And I'm like, I'm going to go find her and see what I can do. And so I round the corner, and there she is. I found a little parking spot. She's panting in the hot Philadelphia. I don't know how many of you know about Philadelphia summers, but humid, hot, and this is in the city, so there's pavement jungle, cement jungle. There weren't many trees. And she found this tiny sliver of shade, and she's panting there. And I didn't know much at the time, because she is how I learned about having a pet, and how I learned about dogs and just knowing, how to socialize dogs and be good with dogs and all that. But I knew enough to be careful going up to her and just, be nice and not crowd her. And I just went up gently and let her sniff me and offered myself. And she sniffed me a little bit and stood up and walked to my car and stood next to it like, well, there you are. I'm ready. I've been waiting. And I was like, the angels sang. It was like, here she is. It's all coming together. It's going to be so easy. She plopped in my lap. But I thought, I should do the cursory. I should try and find her home, because I didn't want to be taking her from someone, even though she kind of clearly looked like she didn't have a home for the last while. I tried to find her home. Nothing came of that. And the rescue I worked with, I asked them about, is there some kind of process? Should I be giving her to you to rehome first so you can, give her proper care and make sure she's all set? And it's actually surprisingly hard to do that, because they kind of needed a third party, essentially. I would have basically had to have put her back on the street and then had like animal control pick her up to take her to, so I would have had to say goodbye. And again, selfishly, I was like, well, I'm not saying goodbye, so I guess I just have to keep her. and my boss, so to speak, at the rescue, that's what she said. She said, well, can you just keep her? And, again, I should regret this, because this was not a good decision. I had no money. I was not ready. I was, I know it's not completely the same, but in some ways it's like deciding to have a kid. On the fly, I was like, oh, I'll just have a kid. Yeah, I'll take her in. It'll be fine. And I thought, that's it. It's going to be great now. And it wasn't it. It was a lot of learning. I learned in the next couple of days she was deaf. And then I learned a couple days after that she was in heat, because she was a dog off the street, unfixed, and in, not a great neighborhood, so who knows what her pre-story is. But it was exhausting. Again, it felt kind of like having a baby, because she couldn't sleep. When she was in heat, she'd wake me up every half hour through the night, and I'd groggily, try and figure out what she wanted, but really I couldn't do anything, because she was in heat and she was just uncomfortable, and she just had to get through it. But even though I was so exhausted in that first, so I'm almost fuzzy how long it was, because it all blends together in this beautiful, you're hearing the truncated version of the story, of course, but I mean, over the years, I just, I learned how to socialize her. I learned, since I said she's deaf, we have like this special language. I mean, I did teach her literally a few sign language signs of how to feed her, when, how to teach her to let me know she needs certain things. But, as with anyone really, if enough time passes, you have that unspoken language between you. And even simple movements, simple nuances, you learn, what they mean, and you don't have to it's okay that we can't speak with each other with English, you know. We can speak to each other with our eyes, and it just works so beautifully. And she taught me so much. I gave up that apartment for her. I had this great older couple were my landlords, and they seemed to really love me, and so I thought, well, I know it said in the lease that pets aren't allowed, but you know, if I talk to them, maybe, you know, we have a rapport, maybe they'll say okay, because I'll promise to do this and that. It felt like a kid talking to the parents. I promise I'll feed her and let her out and do all the right things, you know. But when they said that no, I was like, oh, okay. And you know, thus ensued a period of, long story short, I ended up having to live with her in vehicles for a few times. And my first decision was always whatever she needed. And so I think she actually, in some ways, taught me to be a mother, because I learned how to make decisions not for myself, for the best of who is in my care. And, you know, in all that time, we just built this bond. And at this point, I can't imagine my life without her. And it's been over 11 years. She's an old lady. She's been dealing with some health issues lately, but I think they affect me more than they affect her. She acts like, you know, she's not even a problem, and I'm the one worrying and crying and sitting over there stressing about it. But she's just amazing, and she's really just that same tough old bird I picked up on the street. And I can't imagine my life being any different. So I have no regrets. Thank you for listening.
What a beautiful story. Before you said it, I was thinking, you know, she's going to know a thing or two about motherhood if she ever does have a baby from this whole experience. So before the show, Darby and I were talking about something, and she said, I thought, is this a sign? So it sounds like it was a sign when you saw. Now, what's your dog's name?
Bubba D.
Bubba D?
Yeah.
Bubba D. When she saw Bubba D just, you know, sauntering down the street. So thank you for that beautiful story. She's a lucky doggy, Bubba D. Would you not say, everybody? Yeah, okay. Our next storyteller is Sven. He's the one I was saying was a newbie a few times ago, and now he's like, yeah. So Sven is a musician and amateur linguist. His story is about his journey with alcohol and how he ultimately gave it up, but not for the reasons you might think. Please welcome Sven.
I'm out on the street, screaming profanities, yelling about how we should go find the police, because I think it'd be funny for them to interact with me in my current state. My friend Cullen, who's going to come up a bit during this, picks me up and tries to carry me inside. I don't like this idea, so I scream, "No!" And then I swing my head back and smash it into the brick wall to the side of the door. This doesn't stop him from bringing me inside. You might have suspected it, but I don't remember any of that. He told me about it when I sobered up the next day. I don't drink anymore, and I hope by the end of this you can see why it's okay to laugh and find this funny, all these silly antics I'm going to tell you. I find them funny. And you might think I'd regret that whole smashing my face into a brick wall episode, or any of the other countless blackout drunk situations I got myself into, but I don't. And I didn't the next day, often waking up in my own vomit. And there's 3 reasons for this. 1, I don't remember it, so I don't really identify as being the person I'd hear these stories about the next day. 2, not only did I not have hangovers, but instead I had what I called states of euphoria, all the next day. I basically was just rehydrating, definitely no continued consumption of alcohol that day. I knew instinctively that was a bad idea. But yeah, these states of euphoria, I just felt very cozy, and nothing frustrated me. And back then, in normal states, I was frustrated by a lot of things all the time. So yeah, I might have actually just drank for these states of euphoria. And I had to drink enough in order to reach those, so I black out a lot. Sorry, I'm a little unnerved people aren't laughing. Feel free to laugh. Like, you don't need to be concerned for me. I'm fine. I survived.
It means we're listening, Sven. Yeah.
So anyway, sorry about that. So yeah, I think the biggest and the final biggest reason that I don't regret any of these blackouts is my friend Cullen, who for his own reasons didn't drink, and he was there for almost all of these. And you might think he would be really annoyed at somebody who was drinking till blacking out when he didn't drink at all, but he loved it. When he told me about the ridiculous stuff I got up to the day before, there was such glee in his eyes. Excited about somebody who could be so like energetic and joyful while drinking. And he also looked out for me. He bathed me at least on 3 separate occasions after I'd throw up all over myself. It's a bit gross, right? Now I'm just going to do a laundry list of some ridiculous things I did while I was blackout drunk. That same night that I smashed my face into the brick wall, someone went and got me a fast food burger that I wanted. And after I took a couple bites, I was like, it's pretty good, but it's not as good as trash. And then I threw it into the trash can and then started eating it and whatever else was in there. Another one was I climbed to the top of a tall pine tree after a stray cat that my friends named after me. It was going to get down just fine on its own. Christmas Eve, I was rolling around in the playpen that my nephews would use. They were asleep by then. The next Christmas Eve, I was rolling around outside, covering myself in dirt and getting minor cuts on my exposed skin. Then uncontrollably, but somewhat briefly, I wept. Really, feel free to laugh. Like, this is hilarious to me. I'm a little unnerved you don't find this funny. Like, I am fine, really. And then I burned a couch on the driveway using my friend's bike lubricant as accelerant. And I didn't notice at the time, I wasn't told for a couple months, but that was actually where Cullen slept, rather than his unused bed upstairs. But he still thought it was hilarious. And for myself, yeah, still no regrets. Maybe because one memory I do have from that night, the flames rising well above my head, I was dancing in front of it, thinking that would block the view from the police if they were driving by. Yeah, thankfully I didn't get arrested on that one either. A while after these string of blackouts that I had, about 5 years ago, this is the last time I blacked out, I was at a strange party with strange people at a rural location. I was running around like crazy looking for one of my friends, asking everyone where he was, doing my typical childlike antics during the search. And someone jokingly said that he went to Tennessee, in which case I bolted off into the trees without waiting to hear any more, maybe in the direction of Tennessee. Everybody I talked to afterward loved it. They'd never seen me any other way than my typical reserved self. Some of them even thought I must have been on a bunch of hallucinogens. But Cullen was there and reassured them that, no, this is just him really drunk. So yeah, why do I not drink till blacking out anymore if I didn't regret any more of them? It's because everybody loved it that time. And before that, it was just Cullen loving it. Other people mostly just put up with it. Because the contrarian in me, on hearing this from everyone, was like, this is how you prefer me? Blackout drunk? Rather than sober and maybe not as interesting? Then no, I'm never doing this again. So yeah, maybe Cullen knew it was best for me all along, seeing that contrarian in me for what it was. And if other people loved it as much as he did earlier on, maybe I would have stopped after only like a few times. I don't know. My journey with alcohol and some other elements of my life, it seemed like I was often taught the inverse lesson, maybe to see if I was paying attention. You know, get blackout drunk, people will like you more. And if you're gonna drink, you gotta drink enough, then you'll feel better the next day. And that was true for even lesser amounts of alcohol. I didn't quit drinking until relatively recently. because I had it under control. I really did. From a few years ago, it was only 1 or 2 glasses on occasion, just for the flavor, not out of wanting to get drunk. Then as an experiment, I tried to just drink a sliver of alcohol to see what that would do to me the next day in comparison to a glass or 2, thinking that the symptoms would be much more mild. But due to the strange way my body deals with the poison I was subjecting it to, the sliver of alcohol consistently made me feel so much worse than the glass or 2. And I said, no, if this is the lesson my body's telling me, I'm done with this. Yeah, what a strange biological incentive for my body to come up with. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, that's a lot different than my drinking stories. And I'm trying to picture a playpen that you would fit into. You got some big nephews, I guess. Wow. Anyway, thanks for that great story. It actually reminded me of an episode of, I think it was Friends, where there was a character named Fun Bobby, right? And then he stopped drinking and he wasn't fun anymore. But you're still fun, so thank you.
Hopefully more fun.
Oh, yeah. Our next storyteller, is Rainey Newman. Rainey's told here before. Rainey plays ukulele and harmonica and just started singing for the Seattle Peace Chorus. Her story is about being emotionally ready, or is she? And the universe wanting to show her subconscious something. Please welcome Rainey.
And I also want to apologize because I haven't been feeling well and I have no cards, which I dropped as I crossed the crosswalk. And so maybe it was a sign from the universe. And I think that another sign from the universe is that a lot of cats have been coming into my life lately. I don't, I'll just start with saying that 3 months ago, my black cat Iris passed away, and I thought I wasn't ready emotionally for another cat. But on October 1st, this stray cat started meowing under my window, and I, let me turn this a little bit. Okay. Turn the base. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Little nerves. Okay. So basically, this stray cat, I started feeding it for a week, and I also decided I was going to try to catch it. And I had this friend, Connie, who brought out salmon, and she was also feeding it, and I didn't even know. It was like a conspiracy of strangers trying to do this cat good. So people were feeding it. Somebody put out a box so it wouldn't be cold, and I got to move on to the next page. Because after a week of doing this, and excuse my French, but the shit really hit the fan, because I decided to put a note up in the lobby saying, we have a community cat, everybody, and be nice to it. It kills rats, and I wasn't totally sure at that point that there was so many nice people. But, so I put my name on this long letter, and 2 hours later, I heard this loud commotion outside of my apartment. And I opened it up, and Dan from the 7th floor, who's the first person I talked to about the cat, was holding a cat, a small Siamese cat. And I'd only seen this cat under cars when its beautiful blue eyes. So he said he'd found it on his window ledge on the 7th floor. And I didn't know what to make of that. But it was a mystery that became more clear when he said, he looked into my eyes and he said, you need to promise me that if I give you this cat, you will not give it back to the owner on the 8th floor.
Oh no.
And I don't like to promise. It's kind of against my values. I don't know. But I did. And I both do and don't regret it. Because after I got this kitten, this beautiful Siamese kitten, I put up a note down below on the lobby, and it said, with my phone number, I found the cat. Everybody, everything is gonna be okay. So, the next afternoon, I got a phone call, and I had this bad feeling about it. So but basically, I know the story. So, it was the owner, and Alley Cat Allies told me, don't put your contact information down, because I suspected neglect, or I didn't know how this cat fell out the window. I was worried. She was skinny. She was clean, but she was very skinny. It's hard talking about it because I also called the, well, actually, I'm gonna just go with this phone call that I received. And it was the hyper cheerful apartment manager. And she was saying, I got some bad news for you. The owner wants her cat back. But I've got good news too. She has a kitten here that she's going to give you. And I said, okay, reluctantly, because I just talked to PETA and they said, legally, you have to give it back if you don't have proof of neglect. And I was confused, and I said, okay, I'll give her to you in an hour. And I would bring Grace, and I named her down. But I couldn't find her. And at first. So I looked for her for 45 minutes, and then I found her in the shelf behind my couch. And I had 15 minutes, but during that 45 minutes, I called every single cat organization I could think of, and it gave me a risky idea, and I don't like risks. But basically what I did was, I went down without a cat. I had no carrier. I was meeting this person I didn't know. This woman comes up to me, very businesslike, and she says, are you Rainey? And I said, yes, I am. She had a cat carrier. She said, my name is Tanya, and we started to bargain. It was intimidating. She mentioned her Siamese cat sell for $2,000, so I knew I couldn't afford Grace, or Lightning, as Tanya called her. It was like, I'm not sure I should, anyways, it was like the mafia or something. It was weird. There was this guy skulking in the corner and laughing at weird times, and I need to not go there because I have a mental illness. So anyways, I asked her I pointed questions like, why is Lightning so skinny? She said quickly, because she's greedy and disobedient. But unfortunately, I believed her. She was so cruel when she said, she's a kitten. She has a big head. She's an apple head Siamese. That's just the way she looks. So basically, I let myself get bribed with another kitten. She handed it to me. She buttered me up. I didn't want to push the neglect issue, but I asked if she would get Grace spayed, and then I saw a flash of anger in her. I remained outwardly calm and said I would return Lightning in 24 hours. She said, you're hanging me up, but okay, I've got to go. So I got a whole day of sadly and happily petting Grace, and the next day at 4 p.m., I caught Lightning easily, and it broke my heart because she trusted me until I put her head first into the carrier, and she turned around, and she, for the first time, hissed at me. And her beautiful blue eyes, I mean, it was just really hard looking at her. And I'm not calling her Grace anymore because I gave her back. I went up there in a daze and returned her. I remembered at the last minute that I was going to pay Tanya something for the new cat. So I paid her $70. I wanted her to know I valued her. And I looked in her eyes and I said, Grace, actually I didn't say her name. I said Lightning. Lightning is a special cat. I can see why you wanted her back. She's beautiful. I hope she understood that I'd be watching to see that she treated this special kitten, Grace, well. I waited 3 days until the new kitten emerged from under the sink before I named her. I learned my lesson about naming. She bit my hand one time when I petted her tummy, but she is very gentle now and soft and loves tummy rubs, and she steals my chair, and so I had to write this standing up. And I miss Lightning less after 2 weeks with Coco. And but it still hurts to see the pictures on my phone. And I'm praying, and I hope that I can maybe tell an update story about the stray cat. But I look forward to many happy years with Coco, as she is still a kitten, though bigger than Grace. And she has very fluffy, with a black face, and I love her, and I hope she loves me, especially since I'm getting her spayed in a month. So I'm glad she trusts me, and I hope she doesn't regret it. I don't.
Thank you, Rainey. That's so sad about the cat, and you know, you're such a loving person, and to have to give a cat back to someone you suspect is mistreating it. So anyway, it's nice that there are loving people like our two people tonight to take care of animals that really need it. Okay. Our next storyteller is Gaylord Sisson. Gaylord is an author and poet and storyteller who lives in Burien. His story describes the similarities between East African and Scandinavian cultures and their lifestyles, which he discovered on recent trips. So we will find out how this affected Gaylord. Okay, please welcome Gaylord. Whoop.
I gotta tell you, I was so nervous about coming up here. I've been up here before. Oops. I thought it would be easy.
I learned the hard way. Turn it from the base.
Yeah, but I need it high.
Oh.
That's all right. There we go. Yeah, so let me tell you the story the way I decided I wanted to tell it, about traveling. Of course, my book is about traveling. There's a lot of things I didn't do, and looking back at the opportunities I passed up, and I should regret, but I didn't. I don't. For instance, I went to college and I studied pre-med because I didn't know what I really wanted to be, but I thought if I chose the most difficult thing to try to go for, that by the time I'd make up my mind what I would do, I'd be well prepared. Well, I have been on the dean's list for the last 2 years, and the dean called me up and asked me why I had not accepted the applications to med school. And I told him, I don't like blood. He kicked me out of his office and told me to come back when I did make up my mind what to do. And that's something I don't regret, because it gave me the chance to travel, and I ended up in Canada, and after being in Canada for several years, I came to Seattle just to visit. And I don't regret. I was planning to just visit go to Greece next. But I don't regret not going then, because I met this woman that I married. And we did it, and she came up with some great ideas of where to travel to. And therefore, I don't regret traveling by myself as a single man. I've been married for 36 years, and we just got back. Well, before I tell you where we got back from, let me tell you where we went. First place we went to many of the states here in the United States, so we could say that we went to America. Of course, we were born here too. Then we went to Europe. And that's why I wrote my notes down, because I got, oh my God, we're going to forget all the places we went to in Europe. So we went to, we went to first Ireland. Part of her heritage is Irish, and England. A part of her heritage is English. Also Germany, part of mine is German, and France, then Spain, Italy, Austria, Greece, of course, and Turkey. That was Europe.
Wow.
And we didn't do it in one time, but we went for, most of the time it was for 6 weeks or so. So they were nice traveling. Then our goal, I forgot to tell you what our goal was. Well, my goal before I met her, and she loved my goal, was to go to at least one country on every continent. So we hit it off by America, then Europe, and then a year and a half ago, we went to East Africa. Whoa. Tanzania, Kenya, Ethiopia, and who did I leave out? Where?
Canary Islands?
Then the Canary Islands, yeah. Yeah, well, that's part of Africa. North Africa, yeah. My son was there, that's where we went there. And it was interesting. When I came back with the thought, I'm going to write a story saying that I left home as an African American and returned as an African. When I said that to the audience once before, nobody laughed or clapped but my wife, and then everybody did, because they didn't understand what in the world is he talking about. He's a black man and he's part African, of course. Well, that was different. But then, going to Ethiopia in particular, but all those other countries, and seeing how some of the people are still living the traditional way of hunting and gathering, building their little homes out of wood, and then later on just leaving and going someplace else, and the traditional way of men doing the hunting and the women doing the gathering. We met those people. That was very interesting, different from my culture. Well, we just got back maybe 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago from Scandinavia. You would think there was a big clash, but those people live the same way. They use the environment that they have to build their homes. Of course, in Africa, if they wore clothes, it's probably because Europeans influenced them. At 80, 85 degrees for thousands of years, why would you want to wear clothes? Scandinavia, oh, they packed their clothes on, especially when they were ready for the winter. So they were dealing with their environment. And that's one of the things that I learned as a traveler, is that we people, we use our environment to improve our living conditions. And if you live where you don't need clothes, why put them on? If you live where you don't need a house, you know how expensive those are. Why have one? But all of a sudden I got a flash of one of the things I learned while we were in Denmark. Our tour guide walked us around Denmark, showed us where the royalty lives, and then brought us to his home and announced that his 2 kids were on their own. Him and his spouse were empty nests. And then he explained, we've never been married, my wife and I. Oh, and neither has her parents or mine ever been married. Oh, and neither had their parents ever been married. Traditionally, our culture, as indigenous people here, we never thought about getting married until the Christians came. I thought, wow, those Africans never thought about putting clothes on until the Christians came. And so that's one of the similarities I found, is that we use our environment. And I don't regret that. Did I forget anything? It's Ethiopia, Scandinavia, yeah. So my big thing is we've been to these continents and we're on our way to Antarctica and South America. We haven't been to either one yet. But to get to Antarctica, we're going to go to Argentina. So South America is taken care of. And then we get on National Geographic ship with scientists and go to Antarctica, the Galapagos Islands, and those kinds of things. We're close to hitting all our continents. We've already been to Australia. We've already been to Papua New Guinea, and I've been to Japan. So I got to take my wife there. But what I'm learning is that, I know what I was going to at the end tell you about, which I think everybody should know, is about this man. His name is Yuval Noah Harari, and he wrote this book called The Sapiens. All my friends, I told them about this book. They said, oh, you haven't read that yet? This is a book you should read. It talks about who we are from the very beginning to who we are, possibly who we will be in the future. It's quite an interesting book, and I don't regret reading it.
Thank you, Gaylord. Wow, I would love to have those travel adventures behind me. I have not been to continents like that. I haven't been to many of those countries. I don't know that I ever will, so at least I get to enjoy it. And I want to hear about Antarctica, so when you get that. All right, our next storyteller is Fred Swanson. Fred is a dad and storyteller who lives in Burien. He's also a published writer of short stories and award-winning poetry. Of his story, he says, an international move in high school on my own seemed like a great idea until I got there. Please welcome Fred.
So I'm sitting in the front seat of my mother's 1978 Oldsmobile Custom Cruiser 9-passenger wagon. Sorry, it's maroon. Everything is maroon. The seats, the carpet, the dashboard, the exterior. The only interruption into the maroon is the fake wood paneling on the side, which matches the fake wood paneling on the dashboard. Anyway, I'm in a Fiddler on the Roof outfit because that night I had a dress rehearsal for our high school production of Fiddler on the Roof, and I was a bottle dancer. So we're driving up I-95 towards Reston, Virginia, and I have a final interview for a congressional scholarship for a full year scholarship to go to Germany for my junior year of high school. And so we're going to the interview, and I was actually pretty surprised that I was a finalist for this interview. My mother was even more surprised because she didn't know I had even applied to this scholarship to go. And so we're on our way. And the other reason I was wearing this outfit was because I thought it would make me memorable and stand out and maybe help me get the scholarship. And so apparently it worked, because a few weeks later I was on my way, and we started with a intensive learning, language learning institute in Germany, because many of us, like I had taken junior high German, but none of us were ready for the day-to-day living in Germany, speaking German. So one of the ways that they decided to teach us was by teaching us songs. And so the first song that they taught us was to the tune of She'll Be Coming Round the Mountain When She Comes. And it was, Ich bin Ausländer und spreche nicht gut Deutsch, which means I'm a foreigner and I don't speak German well. Ich bin Ausländer und spreche nicht gut Deutsch. Bitte langsam, bitte sprechen Sie doch langsam. Ich bin Ausländer und spreche nicht gut Deutsch. Please slowly, please speak slowly, because I'm a foreigner and I don't speak German well. So that was a particularly pragmatic song to teach us. Later, when I taught German to traveling Americans, I used that song. Then we moved into some German pop songs, and I don't know if it was like a cultural thing, like they wanted us to experience the culture too and learn these songs, but the one I remember was by a guy named Udo Lindenberg, who was kind of, if you know Rick Ocasek from the Cars, meets Tom Jones. And so this kind of crooner that would wear these glasses. And the song they taught us was Cello, which is cello. And so it went, Du spieltest Cello in jeden Saal in unserer Gegend. You played the cello in every performance hall in our area. Ich saß immer in der ersten Reihe. I always sat in the front row. Und ich fand dich so erregend, and I found you so stimulating. Cello, cello. Du warst eine Göttin für mich, you were a goddess to me. Und manchmal sahst du mich an, and sometimes you looked at me. Und ich dachte, and I thought, man oh man, man oh man. So that song was not necessarily practical for us to learn, but it was good to know the word stimulating, I guess, in Germany. So after that, we got on a train and we headed to our host families. I ended up in a little town called Meerbusch-Osterrad, and I was at the high school was Städtisches Meerbusch Gymnasium, where I was quickly introduced to my German counterparts, and learned very quickly they had learned what Americans were supposed to be like by watching television. And so I was not a tall, blonde football player, and so they were disappointed by that. And then my family was not like the Ewings or like the Carringtons on Dynasty, and so that was another disappointment to them. And so I was having a really hard time making friends. I took music class because I thought maybe I'll find other people that are like into musical theater and stuff like me. And in that class they were doing American folk songs. So I thought, oh, perfect, And so I went in the first day, and they were singing, "If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning," right? Except they were singing it, "If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning." And I was like, it's kind of harsh when you sing it that way. I mean, it was very like German, kind of staccato. Anyway, it didn't go over well with the instructor, who didn't like that I was challenging the way he was teaching American folk songs, and the other students weren't so jazzed about that either. So I had a really hard time meeting people. I had no friends, and in fact, even in the host family I was in, they had a dog, so I spent a lot of time with that dog because I had no one else to talk to, and even the dog bit me. So it was not a good experience. But in any case, I did finally meet one person. Berit Sonnenburg was my one friend in Germany, and her boyfriend, kind of reluctantly, was my friend too, Markus Burgdorf, and we became friends. In any case. It wasn't a great experience, and I do kind of regret sometimes that I missed my 11th grade year in Virginia Beach, Virginia in high school. Pharrell Williams was a classmate of mine, so I could have really been something. But I do kind of regret it, and then I think about it, and honestly, so that song, Cello, by Udo Lindenberg, like, he talks about how into this cellist he is, and I was thinking, like, well, like, that's a soloist, right? Like, that's not an orchestra he's chasing after, it's a soloist. And it really made me think about, it's cool to be a bottle dancer in a group of bottle dancers, and it's cool to be in a chorus and do harmony and be a part of something, but it's kind of next level to carry the melody on your own. And it's kind of next level to write your own song. And I think what I learned that year, when I was 16, is that I'm okay on my own. And I can do it on my own, and I'm really a pretty good guy, even if the dog didn't think so, and even if none of the people in my high school thought so. So I kind of regret that I missed out on a lot, but I'm also really happy that it happened and it's so early in age, because I think it set a course for me that really allowed me to write my own song and my own melody, and I'm proud of that. So that's that.
I think you're a great guy, Fred. That was a great story, and I just picture you with that fiddler costume on. I went to a performance in Columbia, California. It was a little old gold rush town, and they had their dinner theater, and the guy comes out with everything, and he goes, to life, le chime. No. So I hope you didn't do that,
No.
right? Okay, good, all right. So those are our stories for the evening. And I think it was a great lineup. I loved all the stories. I applaud our first timer, and yay! And all of you for coming out to listen and to tell. And we've got a workshop coming up in December if you would like to come and hang out with Paul. I've known him for years. I've been at the Fresh Ground Stories for years. And this guy has told me a few times, he said, well, just start with this. And it's like, whoa, it comes together. It's really good to get pointers from a professional. So anyway, thank you. We will resume in January. Please Google Meetup. And Meetup, if you don't know, I had never heard of it, it's just this thing that all sorts of, like if you want to go on picnics, so there's a meetup group for that, or if you want to go rock hunting, whatever. And so if you look up for 7 Stories, it'll come up. And we hope that that'll be a way to just centralize everything, attract new people, and let people know where we are and who we are. So I hope to see you then. And anything else, Sybil?
If anybody has a theme,
We
there's
don't
been
have
lots
the
of
theme yet.
suggestions for themes for next year. And so if you've got an idea for a theme, just pop it to 7 Stories, or go up to the meetup, join Meetup, 7 Stories, and let us know there.
And because we want 7 stories, because it's 7 stories. But tonight we had 5 wonderful stories. Sybil, did you want me to tell that little snippet or not?
I liked it as an ending,
liked
as an ending.
Okay. This is just, we had coffee today, except it's just an expression for hanging out at PCC where they have tables inside and you can just sit there, and then you use their relatively clean bathroom, and then maybe you buy something, but I didn't actually have coffee, but that's what that means. So, I don't know what brought this up, but I flashed to, she was commenting on some woman's outfit that she thought was cool, this lady who walked past us. And I flashed to being at the, I don't know, I can't remember what it's called in Washington, DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, something. I've been here for 16 years, I can't remember what it's called. In West Seattle. And it was a busy day. And you take a number, and depending on what you want, you have to stand in a certain place. Well, just to give it this bizarre spin, there was a guy, like an adult male, very tall, just ambling around the whole big place while people were sitting there with the entire fur and everything of a wolf? I don't know. But it hanging around his neck. He was wearing this animal and just going around looking very, very bizarre. And I thought, okay, and that you could just see sort of odd people around the room. Well, then a woman came in, and she was a woman, maybe she was in her 80s, I don't know, I'm not a good judge of age, but she was an older woman. And she had on like a prom dress. And it was the kind with the straps, sleeveless, and very pretty, in some kind of satiny fabric with some kind of thing. And she had a necklace, and she had earrings, and she had her hair in an updo. And she was standing in line for whatever particular thing she was there for. And just standing there. And she had one of those carts that you pull, like for your groceries, so it's on wheels. And a young woman, a young girl, came up and was in line behind her. And just the contrast between this lady, this older lady, I'll say older, done up in the prom do, and this young woman just in her jeans and her whatever, just like incongruous pair. And then this girl leaned forward and said to the lady, "You look really nice." And I just heard that. It made me want to cry. I thought it was such a sweet, sweet thing just to witness this little moment between these two unlikely people, and that was so kind and obviously made this woman just like, she stood up a little straighter and, did that. So that was my little snippet. So, see you in January, everybody.